Hi everybody, welcome to your introduction to array lists in Java. Up until now, you've been working with variables that can only store one piece of information. So for example, if I wanted two names, I would store them inside string variables, because strings can store text. The idea of an array list is a single variable will actually let you store a whole list of values. This is a lot more flexible because it would let you deal with potentially millions of pieces of data at once without having to make a new variable for every single name you'd want to store, or every single piece of data you'd want to store. So you can see here in my picture that the name1 variable contains Bob and the name2 variable contains Phil. I'm going to show you how we could make a list that holds those same two names, but with only one variable, and the variable is the name of the entire list. This line of code on line 9 is what actually creates an empty list variable. I know it looks long and complicated, but remember all of the pieces have the same meaning as declaring any other type of variable. So on the very left-hand side, you have the data type, which is what kind of thing is the variable. And in this case, our variable is called an array list, but you can just think of it as being a list. Okay, what's it going to be a list of? Well, it's going to be a list of strings because we want to save lots of different names into the list. And so that's what the string part means. But that entire word, array list string, is the data type for the variable. After the data type comes the variable name. The name of this variable is called nameList. And I think it's a good idea if you're making a list to have the word list be in the name of your variable, because otherwise it's hard to tell that your variable represents lots of things. Then on the right-hand side of the equals sign is the value that you want to save inside your variable. So when we were just saving a single string, you'd actually have your name there. So we'd save Bob into name1. But now we actually want to create a new list. And so you have to say new array list string. And that creates an empty list that's ready to be filled up. So the way that you add things to the list is with the add method. So you start by using the name of your list. In our case, it's called nameList. And then you tell the nameList you would like it to add a new entry to the end. And so we first add Bob, and then we add Phil. Here's what it looks like. When you first create nameList, you've got an empty list here. There we go. Now we can see it a little bit better. As soon as I run the nameList.add method, it will add the string Bob as the first thing in the list. And all of the things that you store in your list are numbered by location. So the first thing in the list is actually location 0, because in computers you always start a list with 0. And then when I say namelist.add Phil, it will add Phil in the next location of the list. So you might be used to thinking of a list like this. You'd say 1 is Bob and 2 is Phil. Usually we imagine the list horizontally, although you could imagine it vertically if you want. And each variable has a number, but they start from 0. Let's go ahead and add a couple more names. You should try and write 2 more lines that add 2 more names. So pause the video and give it a try. I'm going to say namelist.add Bill and namelist.add Carlos. Okay, let me show you some other things you can do. So I'm going to do a system.out.println, and you can ask the namelist how many things are in the list. And the way that you do that is you say namelist.size. Notice that we're using the same pattern where we have the name of our object is namelist, and then after the dot is a method that is what we want that object to do for us. So we're asking the object to add something to the end of the list. Here we're asking the object to tell us what size it is. So in this case, namelist.size should equal 4 because there are 4 things in the list, and then we're going to print that out. You can also print out the list itself just by saying println namelist. So go ahead and type those in and run it just to see what they do. So you can see in my console output down here that it's displayed 4, and then it's displayed the list like this using square brackets, and each element in the list is displayed separated by commas. By the way, the word element is what programmers use to refer to each item in the list. So we'd say this is element 0, this is element 1. There are 4 elements in the list. The last thing that you need to know right now is how do you access things that you've saved in your list? How do you get things out of the list? And the answer is using a command called get. If I say namelist.get, then I give it a location number, and it will get the string at that location. So if I say get 0, it's going to give me Bob, because that's what I saved in location 0. If I say get 3, let's count up. Bob is 0, Phil is 1, Bill is 2, Carlos is 3. So get 3 is going to return the variable that's at location 3. But notice that I said it's going to return it. So this by itself will get the name Carlos out of the list, but we're not doing anything with it. We're not saving it into another variable. We're not printing it. So 2 things you might do. You could print it if you just want to see what's there. So now this line of code would display Carlos. Or it's more common that you would want to get the value out of the list so that way you can do something else with it. So let's make a new variable called my name equals. And so now on the right-hand side of the equals sign, we're asking the list to get out the third, to the thing in location 3. I almost said the third thing in the list, but that's not true. 1, 2, 3. So Bill is the third thing in the list, but it's at location 2. You can see that really clearly if you draw the picture. So location 0 is Bob, 1 is Phil, 2 is Bill. This is a source of a lot of confusion and probably a lot of bugs. So it's nice to have a picture like this in your head, or even better, sitting on a piece of paper right next to you to help you remember. So anyway, on the right-hand side of the equals sign, we're getting out the name Carlos, and we're saving it into my name, and then you can do something with it, like print hello, my name. And now that would print out, hello, Carlos. Okay, self-test time. So use the same patterns here to write your own lines of code. First, make a new list called food list. Then add 3 foods to it, the same way that we were adding names to our name list down here. Then display the size of the list. And finally, get the middle food out from your list. So you added 3 foods. Whatever the middle food was, get that out of the list and display somebody loves to cook something, where you fill in the blanks with the values that you got out of your lists. Okay, pause the video and give it a try, and then I'll show you a solution. All right, here comes the solution. So let's copy and paste this line of code, or actually let's type it, because I think it's nice to get it under our fingers. If we're forced to think about it as we're typing it, it's going to make us remember it better. So I'm going to type ArrayList and then some brackets. I'm making a list of strings, and I'm going to call it food list. Okay, now inside of food list, I'm going to store a new array list that holds strings, and that's it. Oops, string. Okay, so now I've made my food list. Let's add some foods to it. So food list.add mac and cheese. Now I'm going to add another one. Food list.add curry. By the way, I'm typing the full word food list. You'll notice there's some auto-completion happening. So you just have to type FO tab, then hit dot, and see how it's pulled up this context menu, and then you can hit enter with the pinky of your right hand. And when you do that fast, it looks like this. So that happened a lot faster than typing the full list of things. What else do I like to eat? Soup. All right, so mac and cheese, curry, and soup. All right, so I've added 3 foods. Let's display the size of the list. SOUT tab, and then FO tab, dot, S, enter. So you might want to start practicing the tab completion. So that should display 3 if I've done it correctly, because the size of the list is 3. Now let's make a new string called favFood, and I'm going to get out the middle element from my list. Foodlist.get. So you might be tempted to call this 2, get out 2, because I added 3 things. So the middle one must be 2, right? Remember that the first thing is location 0, the next is location 1, the third is location 2. So actually what I want to do is I want to get location 1, because that's the second thing that I added to my list. And now let's print out. Okay, so I did all of this above my name list. Here, I'm going to cut it all. And I'm going to paste it all down here. Okay, so we've still got my name as Carlos, but now we're making our food list. And now I'm going to print out my name loves to cook, and then favFood. And so now hopefully this will print Carlos loves to cook curry. And so it does. Carlos loves to cook curry. Okay, so obviously this was sort of a toy example. Like, why bother getting out the second thing in the list if you can just see what it is and type it? But hopefully you can see that these same tools would be easy to use if your list had 1,000 things or 1,000,000 things. And it's not uncommon when you're programming to work with a list that literally has 1,000,000 things in it. All right, come back next time and we'll start working with some larger lists.